What's up, everybody? Quarterback updates across the conference. Who's in and who's out for SEC Week 5? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, we got plenty of quarterback news we got to get into to start with today's episode. So let's start over at Oklahoma as Brent Venables announced Michael Hawkins is going to start at quarterback for Oklahoma on Saturday against Auburn. The true freshman took over for Jackson Arnold late in the first half of their loss to Tennessee last Saturday. Hawkins led Oklahoma on a pair of touchdown drives late that helped the Sooners, I don't know if you'd say get back into the game, but look a little bit more respectable. Venables on his coach's show Monday night saying Michael Hawkins will start Saturday at Auburn. So we'll hopefully hear more thoughts on this as the week goes along. Venables was very critical of Jackson Arnold's performance and his turnovers following the game on Saturday. Hawkins came in and completed 11 of 18 passes, 132 yards and a touchdown against Tennessee. Used his legs to run as well, scored a rushing touchdown late. So it'll be very interesting to see what he does and if he's the guy the rest of the way moving forward. There's not been many true freshmen to start at Oklahoma. It has happened more frequently in recent years. Of course, Caleb Williams did it. And, of course, Jamel Holloway back at Oklahoma in the 80s after Troy Aikman suffered an injury. But it will be Oklahoma at Auburn, 2:30 Central this Saturday. And speaking of Auburn, trying to figure out what is going to happen with their quarterback situation. Hugh Freeze obviously benched Peyton Thorne after his 4-interception game against Cal. Turned to Hank Brown, who had a big game against New Mexico. But Hank Brown, he turned the ball over this past week against Oklahoma, and they went back to Peyton Thorne. So playing a tough game against Oklahoma this weekend. When asked who would be his starter for this game on Monday, Hugh Freeze said he wasn't quite sure who they're going to go with. He said, quote, "It's going to be a battle this week to see who can master the plan. Obviously, we've got to coach the quarterbacks better. We're moving the football. I believe in what we're doing. Turnovers are the problem." Freeze went on to say, "We can't turn the ball over this much. Got to stress ball security to our quarterbacks and running backs." So turnovers certainly been an issue so far. But speaking of Hugh Freeze, some interesting comments he made on Tiger Talk Monday night. Said he was frustrated with the 24-14 loss to the Razorbacks and went on to say, quote, "I love Sam Pittman, and I hope he wins the rest of his games. But I'm telling you that the hard truth is that if we play them 9 more times, we'd beat them 9 more times. That's what's hard to take." Maybe Freeze meant to say we turn it over 9 more times if we played them again. I'm just kidding. But obviously, come on, man. You can't say that. ESPN's Bill Connolly did a post-game win expectancy and had Arkansas just a 6.8% chance to beat Auburn on Saturday. So, maybe he's on to something there, but I don't know. You got your butt beat. You turned the ball over a ton. You lost by 10. You think you play again, you're not going to turn the ball over? Auburn's been turnover prone all this year. Paul Finebaum was on with McElroy Kublik yesterday and was asked about the Auburn quarterback mess. Paul Finebaum said, "The quarterback change felt forced by someone other than the coaching staff, and those are things that always set off red flares. I can't be more concerned about not only this season, but the future of Auburn football right now. It's this growing perception that this thing is coming undone." So look, keep an eye on it. I don't know at this point. I mean, maybe Peyton Thorne probably gives you your better chance to win this week. Do you like Hank Brown and the upside? Let him go through his growing pains? I don't know what the answer is. But just a few weeks ago, we thought this matchup was going to be Jackson Arnold versus Peyton Thorne, and now it could be Michael Hawkins versus Hank Brown. I don't know. We'll see who Auburn ends up starting. All right, other quarterback news going on around the conference. Over at Texas A&M, Mike Elko and the Aggies. They're trying to see when Connor Wigman is going to come back for them at quarterback. Played well in week 2 against McNeese. Battled through his shoulder injury that he suffered in the opener against Notre Dame. But since then, it has been Marcel Reed going. And ahead of Saturday's game against Arkansas, Mike Elko met with the media, gave an update, said Wegman will be a game-time decision. So A&M has gotten good play out of Marcel Reed overall. Aggies back up getting the start the last couple weeks against Florida and Bowling Green, leading to wins for the Aggies. So probably feel good about Marcel Reed going against Arkansas, but keep an eye on that if Wigman improves at all during this week. How about over at Texas? They've got quarterback questions. Quinn Ewers could be getting closer to returning to the field, but he's going to have to show some things if he wants to do that this week. On his Monday press conference, Steve Sarkisian updating the status of Quinn Ewers, saying he returned to practice, but declined to say whether he will return to the starting lineup against Mississippi State this weekend. Sarkisian telling reporters Ewers practiced on Monday, said he still needs to do some work to return to the lineup. He said, I would say if I had to put a report out, he would be questionable for Saturday. Now, SEC teams are required to send out an injury report for conference games on Wednesdays, assuming Quinn Ewers will still be on that list. Sark said, he's got to do enough to show me he can play. We've got a game plan. Can he execute the game plan? That's really the truth. I want to make sure he's healthy enough to play at a high level. I was impressed with where he was today. So, look, they play Mississippi State. I think they could start Arch Manning and probably still win the game. But I think one Texas fan pointed out, I mean, Quinn Ewers is, not played. I think he's played like one full game. Yeah, Quinn has played one full game this season and maybe 8 quarters of football total. Now you're getting into SEC play. He needs to get that work and timing with his teammates to remain sharp. So we'll see. But look, I'm sure some Longhorn fans wouldn't mind seeing another week of Arch Manning. It's fun to watch. All right, over at Florida, Graham Mertz been named one of several Manning Award stars of the week following his performance against Mississippi State. Mertz completed 19 of his 21 passes against the Bulldogs, good for 90.5% completion percentage, the third best single game marked by a quarterback in school history. Combine that with DJ Lagway, who went 7 for 7, made for a 92.8% rate. Now, Billy Napier seems pretty committed to sticking with Mertz and Lagway, playing them both moving forward. But as they say, if you got 2 quarterbacks, you got none. Both guys played very well in that game against Mississippi State, but it was Mississippi State. We'll see what they look like moving forward here. But congrats to Graham Mertz. Obviously a really good week. And now Florida gets their bye week. They sit at 2-2 in a very important game against UCF coming out of that break on October 5th. So we'll keep an eye on that one. All right, enough quarterback talk. How about over at Kentucky, Mark Stoops giving an update on injured running back Chip Trainum, transferred to Kentucky this offseason from Ohio State. On his Monday coaches show, Stoops announced that Trainum has been cleared to play. He was not ready to say if he would play this week, but said, we'll see. We weren't in pads today, but he's been cleared to go. We'll see what type of strength he has in that hand. It was operated on, so we'll see how he comes along and what he's like throughout the week here, but he has been cleared. Of course, with Trainum out, Demi Sumo Kornbay has been very good, rushing for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns for Kentucky. Now, let's look. The theme of this segment was quarterbacks. Let's slide in a quarterback tidbit. Brock Vandagriff, passing game, not been great so far. He's thrown for just 550 yards, 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in 4 games played. Would like to see them step it up. And look, you step it up in competition this week. Getting a top 10 team in the Ole Miss Rebels. Going to be interesting to see what Brock Vandergrift does. Look, he's going to have to play really well and score some points. The good news is road trip to Ole Miss. It is an early one, 11 a.m. Central on ABC, so maybe that plays into Kentucky's favor, but they're a double-digit underdog already. We'll get to more on that game in just a little bit. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we will give you some more tidbits and news going on around the conference. That's coming your way here in just a second. Well, first, I want to remind you guys, today's episode is presented to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot to stay alert, to watch all your favorite games, or if you stay up late to watch an intense overtime game, take a 5 Hour Energy shot in the morning so you can start your day. Zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website, they got flavors galore: watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, whatever it is you want. You try them all on their website. You even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and they'll deliver it right to your door. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5, hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today. Use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That'll get you 20% off your order. That offer only valid until September 30th on one order, cannot be used on other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, but go to 5hourenergy.com today and load up and get yourself feeling good for an all-day tailgate, staying up late to watch games, whatever it is. 5 Hour Energy has got you covered. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. And we got to dive into it, man. We're going to talk a lot about this game as the week goes along, but it is officially Georgia-Alabama week. And Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs getting ready for their trip to Tuscaloosa to take on the top 5 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. And there's some news regarding injuries. Kirby Smart, talking to reporters on Monday, said that star pass rusher Mykel Williams, quote, did some running on Thursday or Friday of last week, and said he's hopeful Williams will be able to see the field on Saturday. Smart also said he's hopeful defensive tackle Jordan Hall can play against the Tide, coming back from a leg injury, and defensive tackle Warren Brinson, working back from an ankle, did practice last week. Now, Williams, like we said, Mykel Williams dealing with that ankle injury. It's caused him this much of this season so far. Did some running last week. We'll see how he does at practice, according to Kirby Smart, but there is a chance he will be back, and they could use him to chase down Jalen Milroe, who is that dual threat passer and runner. Kirby Smart also giving some praise to Jalen Milroe when asked about the Alabama signal caller. He said the challenges are immense because he's an incredible football player. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is cover everybody with him. Sometimes the best thing you can do is cover everybody. So we'll see what Georgia's plan is going to be with Milroe. But he said you see him make more throws that are on rhythm. You can tell he's become more comfortable. Deep ball passer, vertical passer. He has improved immensely. Some of his best and most exciting plays are when things break down or he runs by design. So obviously, a lot of praise there from Kirby Smart talking about Jalen Milroe. One other note on Georgia, one of the stats, Cole Kublik tweeted this out earlier this week. College football teams that have not allowed a touchdown this season, only one. It's the Georgia Bulldogs. So, look, I'll say this, bold proclamation. If Georgia holds Alabama touchdownless on Saturday, they will win the game. It's a real hot take there. All right, over at Alabama, the Monday before the Georgia game, Kalen DeBoer giving an update on some of his injuries. Seemed optimistic about defensive back Malachi Moore, who sustained that head injury against Wisconsin. He said for Malachi, it was just a matter of time. Said he was out there practicing already at the end of last week. On Quay Rousseau, he said, still taking steps, still working through the situation. I'm optimistic. We just have to see as we evaluate him throughout this week. As for Cole Adams and Richard Young, he said they are working them back slowly. So the biggest one that they are going to need in there is Malachi Moore, but Quay, obviously big-time playmaker defensively. So could use those guys back. They're both starters on the defense, and Moore, of course, is a captain on the team. So keep an eye on those injuries for Alabama and Georgia. They're going to want all their best players out there ready and available for Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. All right, over at Arkansas, Sam Pittman suspending one of his running backs for violating a team rule. Running back Rashad Dubinion. Interesting to keep seeing what they do there. Obviously, Jaquindon Jackson has established himself as one of the best rushers in the SEC, and he is their workhorse. But there was a real chance that maybe he could have beat him out in the offseason, but it wasn't the case. And Dubinion obviously has been a contributor out of that backfield, but it's not the first Arkansas player to be suspended this year. Wide receiver Desmond James missed the game against UAB for breaking a team rule. And so they lose a little bit of depth behind Jaquindon Jackson with suspending Rashad Dubinion. But nonetheless, Jaquindon Jackson and quarterback Taylor Green, they have been a dynamic duo so far in the SEC for Arkansas. And I like the addition of those two guys. And honestly, they should have won that game at Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago, and they'd be really rocking and rolling right now. All right, on the other side, Texas A&M, Mike Elko and the Aggies getting ready to face off against Arkansas in the Southwest Classic at AT&T Stadium in Dallas this Saturday. Aggies are 3-1. And Mike Elko talking about the challenges that Arkansas presents them. Obviously, Bobby Petrino and the quarterback in Taylor Green. When asked about Taylor Green, Mike Elko said, when a player has the ability to make explosive plays, it enhances your focus level from play to play. Regardless of down and distance, area of the field, or situation, he has the ability to create a play down the field. Elko also very complimentary of Bobby Petrino. He said right now they are a top 10 total offense in the country, and Coach Petrino has them playing at a very high level. Arkansas is a top 20 scoring offense and sits at number 16 in rushing yards per game through their first 4 games of the season. And Jaquindon Jackson, one of the best rushers in the SEC so far. All right, other news going on around the conference. Over at LSU, Brian Kelly, speaking to reporters on Monday, confirmed that linebacker Harold Perkins will indeed miss the remainder of the season with a torn ACL. Projected to be one of LSU's best defensive players. You combine that with losing Jacoby and Guillory for the year on the interior of that defensive line. It's 2 of their biggest names on defense. But Brian Kelly saying, despite losing Perkins, they're not going to fall apart. Quote, we're not going to fall apart or lose our identity. You feel bad for the individual more than anything else. He's a great player, but it takes all 11 players. So we'll see who fills that void there. Obviously, LSU's got some good linebackers beside him in Whit Weeks and Greg Penn. Major Burns plays that star. They got freshman Kylan Jackson there. They also have, Sage Ryan, who kind of moves around in that secondary. So we'll see. I brought this up the other day. As far as pass rushing goes, we thought Harold Perkins was going to be, the guy we saw 2 years ago, big-time sack artist, but really he had 0 sacks through 4 games this year. It's really been Savion Jones and Braden Swinson that have been their big sack artists. Swinson's got 5 sacks, Savion Jones 3.5. So to me, those guys are probably more important for at least getting after the quarterback. But as we know, Harold Perkins does a bunch of other things. Not saying it's not a big loss for LSU. It is, but they should be able to sustain the rest of the way. How about over at Ole Miss? They have that explosive offense, one of the best in the country, lead the country in points per game at 55, passing yards at 422, and total offense at 670 yards a game. They're 4-0 after their win against Georgia Southern. And Tre Harris, of course, one of the best receivers in the country, best receiver in the SEC so far. He had 11 catches for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns. And with his performance, he was named the Reese's Senior Bowl Offensive Player of the Week. He shared the award with Shedeur Sanders, who helped lead Colorado in that overtime win against Baylor. But Jackson Dart, among the frontrunners for the Heisman Trophy so far, and they're going to get their first test this Saturday when Kentucky comes to town. Lane Kiffin, talking with the media, said, I think Jackson Dart is a wonderful person. I think he treats people really well. spends a lot of time with kids around here, including my son and nephew. Really great person, but on the field, there is a trust level there with him. Lane Kiffin also asked about starting up the SEC play. He said, I'm excited to be playing at home and play against a team in Kentucky that had an easy win on Saturday and was one play away from beating Georgia a week before that. He said, these guys always play hard against us. They have great defensive players all over the place, very experienced, great length. You saw Georgia's struggles against them. Excited to play in the SEC, but this is also a very tough opponent. One other thought on Kentucky. He said they have really good length on defense. I think that it's happened to us. A lot of people, sometimes you play a team and they just play it close. That's what they just did against Georgia. But when you don't have size and length, you struggle. They very much look like an NFL defense. So Lane Kiffin being very complimentary of Kentucky, albeit they are sitting at around a 16-point favorite with that game opening up. One other thought here, Tennessee, Paul Finebaum talking with McElroy and Kublik on Monday about Tennessee really, really impressing him. And he says that he thinks the jump on defense has landed the Vols squarely in the national title conversation, clearly in the 12-team playoff. He said, look, they've gone from what I thought was a fringe team, maybe 9-3 with an upset, 10-2, but they would need a big upset. Now, in my mind, they are clearly in the playoff, and we're not talking about a one-shot deal. This is a team that can play in January. That means they are a national championship contender. He went on to say, what strikes me even more is the two biggest games they've had so far. They've made mistakes offensively, some fumbles, bad decisions, but they've survived because their defense is so dominant. He said, I'll spare you the cliches, but a defense like this can carry you a long ways. If they can start to eliminate some of those mistakes, this is going to be a very difficult team to beat. So Tennessee getting their roses nationally, Paul Finebaum and others singing their praises. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And look, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets over at FanDuel. And of course, you will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is over at FanDuel.com. Of course, you could download the app and get started with checking out some of the lines they got going on over there with all the SEC play happening this weekend. They got it there for you. And, you know, I've been telling people, download the app and get your account set up. If you've never signed up with them before, you can bet that $5, get that $200 in bonus bets guaranteed after you place that $5 bet. And then get in on some of those early lines. Kentucky's sitting at about a 17.5-point underdog against Ole Miss. You think they can keep it closer than that? Cover. You like Arkansas to pull off the upset. You get about plus 140 against Texas A&M in Jerry's World. And Auburn sitting as a 2.5-point home underdog right now to Oklahoma. That's all up there for you right now on FanDuel. Download FanDuel today and check them out at FanDuel.com. Check them out. All right, continue on here at Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And final segment here, we want to get into some of the SEC players of the week, guys that were honored for what they were able to do this past week in SEC Week 4. And we start with Offensive Player of the Week. Well, it was one of those co-weeks. They do this a lot. They give away, guys named co-offensive coordinators, but it was or co-offensive players of the week. It was Garrett Nussmeier over at LSU, and then Nate Noel over at Missouri. They were named co-offensive players of the week. On defense, it was TJ Metcalf over at Arkansas with the 2 interceptions. Really, really dominant game from him. By the way, you can donate to him if you want over on the Roy app. We'll tell you more about that later in the week, but we did that as well. Special teams, it was Max Gilbert from Tennessee. Offensive lineman of the week, Austin Barber from Florida. And then defensive lineman of the week, Braden Swinson at LSU and Joshua Josephs at Tennessee. Your freshman of the week was Nico Iamaleava over at Tennessee. So all good honorees there, and congrats to those guys, all being named players of the week. Really, really good stuff. Again, Tennessee recognized across the board. Kicker Max Gilbert was 3 for 3 on field goals for the day, and Nico just continues to impress so far as not looking like the freshman that he is. All right, before we get out of here, let's get to some game times. The SEC released TV info and the broadcast network details for the Week 6 matchup slated for October 5th. So here's how the day shapes up. Early in the morning, you will get Mizzou at Texas A&M. That'll be 11 a.m. Central on ABC. Into the afternoon, it'll be Auburn at Georgia. That's the 2:30 game on ABC. So those games are back-to-back. Over on ESPN at 3:30 Eastern, you'll have Ole Miss at South Carolina. On the SEC Network, Alabama at Vanderbilt, 3:15 Central. See what Diego Pavia and company have for Bama. Obviously a much improved team this year. And then into the evening, it'll be Tennessee at Arkansas. That's a really interesting game. It'll either be 6 or 6:30 Central. So, it's at least sometime in that hour. And then in the evening, UCF at Florida, 6:45 Central game on the SEC Network. And a big, big game there for the Gators. They've got to win that one if Billy Napier wants to survive this season. I mean, not to put too much pressure on them, but you know what the SEC schedule looks like down the road. You got to beat Central Florida. I know they're a pretty good team and they got some good players, but you got to be able to beat them at home in the swamp. You got embarrassed by Miami. Just can't keep losing all the in-state schools in the state of Florida. You're the Florida Gators. You're the one, when people say Florida, that's you. You got to beat the other teams in your state. So see if they are able to do that. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. For your second listen, you can find Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin getting you ready week in and week out for the college football slate. You can find Locked On College Football on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for checking us out. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Come on back and see us.